Okay, I wanted to make a video because, like, the town I'm in is so weird, dude. Like, it's so weird. I've been, okay, on more than one occasion, there's been talk of, like, a cult here doing black magic stuff. But at the same time, right, even though that I know that there's obviously, like, alternative belief systems and rituals, I also know that in this town, there's, like, a lot of really fucking bored people doing messed up shit, like gossiping about each other. And I don't think twisting truths maliciously like that, if that's what they're doing, right? For all I know, there is an evil cult in town, you know what I'm saying? But, like, if it's just a different belief system, because I have also encountered, like, extreme disrespect for doing things differently than somebody spiritually myself. And doing that with your words, like, your words carry energy. So you are casting a spell, so to speak. And when you're manipulating the truth as God's laid it out, you're actually doing black magic and demon worship in that act. So whether it's, and you know, like, to be completely real with you, I consider myself, like, I do go to church. I love going to some churches, and I always have. I was baptized Roman Catholic as a baby. I was in certain foster homes that, you know, were Christian. I went to a private school that was Christian for a year growing up. Like, that was the best school I had ever been in. So I'm hoping this video brings people together, maybe humble some Christians into not being so weird about other practices, and then also perhaps maybe, like, shed light on the universal aspects of everything, because I don't think I'm Christian, to be honest. I'm very careful about saying that, and I don't like saying it. I like saying that I'm a follower of Christ, because I believe I am. I'm a follower of Christ. I'm a child of God. But in terms of structured religion, I'm not sure if that relationship, I'm not sure any religion actually meets my needs spiritually alone and in and of itself. And there's always going to be an authority at a church with a problem with me. I've accepted that, right? Am I still welcome? Yes, usually, unless they're, like, really messed up. But, like, I do want to say that I'm not sitting here bashing somebody with different spiritual practices, because I don't know the truth of the matter, right? But I also have, you know, heard people being really creeped out, in particular about how, I guess there's, like, somebody in town really, like, selling love spells or something. I don't know, like, weird stuff. And if you actually know how to do and manipulate energy like that, it actually is horrible karma to yourself, because you're standing in the way of destined partnership options. Are people limited to one? No, but the options that they do have are God chosen. And when you cut somebody off that is fated to another person by doing, like, some spell with some other person, and they got to go through this entanglement of realizing it on top of already probably picking confused options, just naturally in their journey coming to God in the first place. Like, you adding to the confusion is terrible karma, okay? Like, you're standing in the way of somebody being with somebody that they're actually meant to be with, potentially, and that's huge manipulation. Like, that's real bad. When you're consciously aware of what you're doing and then you're doing it like that, like, that's, and if you're not conscious, like, if you're that little mentally, it's gonna, like, lessons are just going to keep coming at you until you do learn, right? That's the way of God. But I wanted to do this because, like, a major part of my protection comes from knowledge in the Bible. comes from ways of praying that I've learned from the Bible. And I first want to go into having compassion for the Bible. Okay, like the religion aside, just the Bible. It's it's supposed to be the sacred text that the religion is based on. Okay, so, and I'll get into the religion later, but the Bible, I think the main issues people have is like the discrimination against sexuality and the sexism in it. And applying God's word like that in this day and age, you're absolutely right. It doesn't work. Like it would be complete idiocy to say otherwise. And people sometimes do in little ways and deny that it's sexism or discrimination, but it is. Whether, and I think a lot of Christians they do have a real relationship with God, and so that they have realized not to apply that word in that way. And here's why. It's just when you're reading the Bible, this is God's word applied to a world removed from the world we have now. So God's word didn't change, but the application changes. But in order to find God's word, and when you're coming to God before you're really good at recognizing him yet, the Bible really helps. It really helps because, like I said, there's parts of it where that energy just screams at you and you can't not miss it, right? And from there, you can sort of come up with your own. You're like, okay, I know. And you're going to pick up things that you just know are right for you. And because we're talking about a different time, right? They're talking about, there's a lot of tension in there about, gay people. And the reason is actually very logical, and it's very easy to be compassionate about it because we're talking about a time that people were few and far in between. This was thousands of years ago. Unlike today, where it's like we have systems and like human populations are like parasitic levels. It's the opposite problem that they had. Okay, they were living in a time where if they built a good community, that good community was always at risk of being pillaged and raided and taken over. They did not have the systems we have. They did not have the safety in numbers that we have. In order to get that, they had to build it and build it aggressively. So gay people were very much discouraged from life partnerships with each other. And then straight partnerships were like, if you want to be here in this society, you need to contribute to its safety and make numbers because there's safety in numbers. It's like, and it's terrible. But this time was such a scary time that the people that were gay knew that that was better. They self-sacrificed, okay? Because these people, if you were a gay man, you loved your mom, you loved your sisters, you loved the women of your community, you got married and had babies, and then you loved your daughters. You did not want them to be at risk of falling victim to like really chaotic, traumatized, disturbed other communities that were running around and doing terrible things for control and power. They were raiding. They were doing terrible things during their raids. So this was something that you did want to do. And it's very easy now to be like, I would rather die, right? Right. But like, you weren't there. And they didn't rather die. And I think that that's understandable. And then naturally, being cut off from your heart, I do think that the tension that would create either in the affairs or, right, like the maybe the resentment you would harbor if you were a woman that was gay married to a man, maybe at the husband irrationally, and it was, just because your needs weren't being met and you were having to do things you just really didn't want to do with somebody you don't want to do it with, right? Like that's ucky. But it creates a lot of tension. Even if you do believe what you're doing is right, that is the struggle that they were in. And there was a lot of drama surrounding this. Naturally, very understandably, these people denying such a big part of themselves would result in tensions in their marriages. And then people looking in and judging, and it was bad. It was terrible. What they had to do for survival, basically. It just wasn't fair. But again, a different time definitely isn't a way we should be applying God's word now. He does not want us to discriminate for sexuality. They're speaking against the issue. Like they're misguidedly trying to avoid issues that paled in comparison to survival and fear of safety. Like your basic needs were in jeopardy back then, and the basic needs of your loved ones. So it gets very complicated, and I'm not saying it was right. It was wrong, and it wasn't fair. But, that's how I forgive that, and I don't apply that way. With the sexism, it's a very similar thing. The chances of another community coming in and taking over yours, if they did that, they would murder all the men. Making women under thumb to very gracefully accept being lorded over by a man was future-proofing their own people, which is very sad. It's like, if you didn't, the chances of you and your children being killed because of it were big, and it was a self-sacrificial thing women had to do, was be comfortable not being in charge. And totally, again, not fair. And it's just like very easy to say, oh, well, like I would rather die. But like the people back then were brutal if they were brutal, right? Like it's not just you dying. It might be your sisters, your mom, your kids first. And you're going to have to watch it potentially before you do. Or you have to die knowing that they're next. Like that's the kind of punishment that came because you needed to be under thumb as an adult from the previous community, previous culture, if you will, someone who might threaten the new power hierarchy. You needed to be under thumb. You needed to not threaten. And you just needed to sacrifice your generation for the next ones, because the more compliant you were, the more your next generations were accepted. So, different time. Totally not fair. Totally not right. Totally not how we should apply it now. Unfortunate it ever had to happen. But when you realize what they were living in, it becomes a lot easier to be like, oh my gosh, I see how they landed at that conclusion, right? Like the lives of your loved ones. That's the exception. God's word there is love needs to prevail no matter what for better times. People ate it for a generation so that the next generation that they knew were instilled with their love would have more influence and be more accepted. That's like so sad. I might cry. That's like how it was, okay? I'm not gonna cry. I'm just telling a story. That's not how it is anymore. Anyways. guess we can all give thanks that they did that. The chances of some of them being our ancestors is big. We all kind of were one continent at one point, coming from the same place. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so back to the issue of being discriminated against. If the evil here is that these people are doubting their relationship with God because of they're doubting your relationship with God, it's actually them doubting themselves and their relationship. So that's why you need to not let it bug you. People are only threatened by someone else when they're coming from a position of arrogance. There are different ways of achieving a relationship with God. And I like doing sometimes very shamanistic type visualization and verbal exploration. I like playing with tarot cards because it does yield the energies, like it does illuminate the energies you have around you. And if they are bad energies, it is important to wrap your head around that and figure out how they're attaching. And there's a lot of power in consciously expelling that negativity, and the judgment surrounding doing it differently is very hypocritical, first of all, because everyone has encounters with evil every single day. And your awareness of the encounters doesn't change the encounter at all. It's like akin to like a Christian who doesn't do that stuff, and they're like walking down the road and something happens and oh, I got a bad vibe about that. That is not for me. And they walk away. Like, are they conscious of an evil energetic entity? No. But that's what they were most likely saying no to. And it is the same result via a different process, via different types of awareness. And there is no right or wrong way, that way of going about it. Like, you can't judge people for being more aware or having more results through being more aware. Different kinds of people need different things. And shamanistic type journeys are literally more in line with Jesus's experience. So he very, very visually and verbally went through this exploration of the demonic energies around him and very consciously said no, very aware of their presence. He was more in line with shamanism than most Christians are today. My point, coming full circle, in religions were meant to be universal. And different ways of doing things, that needs to just, like, it's not your business how somebody else does it. You don't get to dictate what works for them and what doesn't. And, you know, Christians especially have no place judging other religions when usually Jesus was more in line with them, right? Like, even Wicca or being like a white witch, that I'm sorry, what? Like, yeah, it's the same thing. You have a sacred place and you do a ritual that helps you be a better person. How is that not the same thing as an altar at a church? How is that not the same thing as praying at church, followers of Christ did meditative prayer, and they would pray chanting sometimes the same things over and over and over again. Okay, and they would enter this state, and sometimes they would do this for hours. This was not uncommon. So it's like, I love entering a very meditative state and exploring my energies, and it's been very crucial and important to my own personal self-growth. And it is very parallel to what the followers of Christ did. It is parallel. You know, white witches and Wiccans, like, their rituals are very parallel to a lot of things in Christianity. So it's the same thing. There's really no need to be judging. In fact, if you are judging, you need to look at what's in you that has you doing that, because that's not a godly thing to do. That person isn't hurting anybody. And jumping in judgmentally, aggressively, or even passive aggressively, like, that's something you need to be doing when you're standing up for what's right. When somebody's invading a boundary they shouldn't be invading. That's what that motivation, those motivation feelings, that's what they're for. And if you're feeling them, it's probably because there's something in you that you need to be directing that to, not other people in this situation. I'm sorry, but it doesn't make any sense. And I made notes so I didn't forget anything, because it was a lot of things. But yeah, okay, God's faith magic, his miracles, you can access them. You begin to recognize them in the Bible. They're still very valuable, and there are definite ways of protecting yourself. So if you're needing protection, this has worked for me, and this is the only thing I know how to do. I wish I could contribute more options. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot of them, but I do find reading Psalm 91, Psalm 23, Ephesians 6, 10 to 18, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, 14. I think I wrote that down wrong. It's somewhere in chapter 10. Let me look. But definitely, yeah. And Matthew 5, 3 to 13 and 14 to 17. All of those things are very protective, reading those passages out loud. It's and you'll feel the energy gaining momentum within you, right? And sometimes I get very charismatic too, and I start saying this with conviction, okay? And it's amazing. You can put it down and forget about it after that. And God will always show you eventually how he went to battle with you. After that, negative manipulations on you, manipulations you didn't consent to, especially after you say no, okay? Anyone trying to siphon your energy, because that's what that does, right? Manipulating other people, it can really steal from their energy too. So he will go in, and whoever is trying to manipulate the wrong way, he's going to use their energy to do this. So they'll be sucking themselves dry the more and more they keep trying. And on top of it, they're just going to be starting to face karmic consequences. And it's going to be seemingly unrelated. It's not good, right? When you try to plant negativity on somebody, like I guess love spells isn't really doing that. It's just manipulating, but it will still be severed, and it will you'll like those people will still need to to go through the consequences until they realize and stop what they're doing. Um and yeah, it does backfire in order for them to learn the lesson. But other kinds of manipulation where people are trying to implant negativity in you, if that's the cause of funny things happening, reading these passages and praying actually expels the implant really quickly. It'll just go back to sender. Whatever energy that they've taken from you for this thing to happen, or whatever this thing is taken from you, that energy is returned to you, and it's coming from that person who sent it. Yeah, it's very powerful, like insanely powerful. Let me see. I don't know. I think it's Corinthians chapter 10, verse 14, and then it goes from there, maybe. It's somewhere around there. But yeah, that, and you'll feel it. It's crazy. But just forget about it after that. Go live your best life after that. Because that's what you were designed for. That's what God made you for. Every single person here. The price of this can also be discovering if there are negative energies in you, right? Because you're calling in this war on these negative energies, and he's going to do it. He's also going to want you to see if you're like that. But you should want to see too, because it's only knowing how low vibration kind of evilness has its grasp on you. It's only knowing that allows you to fix it. And that's a normal part of life, actually. And everybody's constantly doing this. So there's nothing wrong with it. This is very powerful, but yeah, be ready, because you're also going to be growing if you need to be growing too. But that is good. Like, I like that, and I want that. I want to be my best person. I don't want to be accidentally spreading toxicity in any way that I can help it. And you should definitely be the same. That should be your attitude. So that shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, no, the battle's already been won. These are like, it's not, one of these passages even says it. These aren't battles of the flesh. There isn't actually anything evil but any of the true aspects of these people that are doing this either. They're victims to the devil and his principalities right now. And just as we've all been at some point, and just as we all will be about certain things at some point that we'll have to realize and exile or cast aside, and with God, and that's their karma. That is justice. They're here literally because we're supposed to do this because of what they've done. Their lesson is watching us, simple humans, overcome again and again and again. We overcome them. And the battle has already been won. We become empowered when we realize it over and over and over again. That's why I'm like, don't run from yourself. Don't be scared of seeing bad things in yourself. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making mistakes. There's something wrong with running from fixing them or continuing to make them. Because you're not loving yourself when you do that. And you should believe in yourself, because God believed in you, and all your ancestors went through so much just for you to get here. So that alone is all like just beautiful motivation. yeah. And people will, right? If they're harboring and doing this sort of demon worship unknowingly, or even knowingly, they still serve the consequences. But even unknowingly, there's going to be like, divine's going to be trying to scream signs at them via karma. They're just going to attract bad energy for emitting bad energy. And until they realize that the divine's going to be wanting them to see, they're going to be trying to get them to see. Because who they truly are beneath those illusions and that evil that's not real, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful person, right? It's even hard for me to say because I like immediately think of people that I'm like revolted by, and I'm like, I just haven't seen that side of them, right? Like, I gotta hold faith, be like, sometimes there's a reason evil has such a big grasp on people like that. Maybe who they really are underneath it all is just such a threat that evil is giving it their best shot and all their energy to hide who they really are, and prevent them from coming into that power in God. Sometimes that's it too. You gotta trust. They're on their own journey. Let it go, because God definitely has it. But you don't have to be involved. And for trying to force you into it, they will fall. Especially with those passages and saying it out loud. Especially when you're vibing and you're feeling God's presence while you do it. It's beautiful and very strong. And it's renewal, it's renewing, it's very rejuvenating. And yeah, another word that might help Christians in particular find it easier to be humble about other belief systems would be knowing that Catholicism and conquering it was never supposed to happen. Before it was even called Catholicism, Jesus said no. And for hundreds of years, the popes said no to that one pope trying. Eventually, they just went off and did it. And now we have all these denominations as a result of people trying to correct the agenda aspects of Christianity to bring people into spirit and into God. Because those agenda aspects don't belong. That stuff wasn't supposed to happen. And that is why I consider myself a follower of Christ and a child of God more than a Christian. And it's not that I don't like Christians, and it's not like I don't like going to church, because I do. It's just that I can't find a place in any denomination, and it is what it is. Unfortunately, embracing differences and eccentricities, it can disturb people and create a lot of tension within the communities that you're trying to be a part of when they're Christians. So this could heal a lot if we could all come together in this one way. It's not like you have to be shamanistic. Nobody's telling you how to do things. You do what works for you, right? But you have to let other people do what works for them too. And yeah, if anyone really is feeling the need for protection, and after hearing this and how I've had compassion for the bad parts of the Bible, they might find help in how I protect myself for themselves.